Moving on to another discussion, cement and those prices in India have seen some softening, we presume, during the current quarter owing to the GST transition. I think some dealers mentioned about there being about a 15 to a 20 rupees cut as well. But let's, without speculating, let's discuss the pricing trend in the cement space and how is demand likely to take up because of a variety of factors that are coming up. Jamshed Naval Cooper, Managing Director and CEO of Heidelberg, joins us right now on the show. Mr. Cooper, thanks so much for joining in on Bloomberg Quint. Appreciate you taking the time out. I want to start off with one tweet that came in from Vinayak Chatterjee of feedback, and he mentioned that road construction has moved up from 7 kilometers a day to 22 or 23 and likely to go up further as well. One would presume that and certain infra revival would naturally lead to a higher demand for cement. Is it happening? Will it happen post monsoon season getting over, or is it too difficult to say that right now?
Okay. So, today when we are talking about road construction, it consumes a lot of cement. I agree with it. But as of now, we are not seeing the demand which is coming in as the way it is. If it was a 21 kilometer, then the cement demand should have shot up significantly. I think it's a mobilization stage where the contractors are mobilizing their equipment and trying to garner their resources so that they can start the construction post monsoons. As of now, there will be another problem which they could also face, would be availability of building materials. So that is one thing which the government has to work upon because there are many places there won't be availability of sand. So those are the things which they will have to grapple with. As of now, we don't see the demand on the table.
Mr. Cooper, if you could give us an idea how prices have moved so far in September?
September, I would say if I take a central India view or a North India view, it is more or less, North India is a little bit depressed. If I say a central India, it is more or less flattish, minor reduction. East, a little bit of improvement was there, but after the Bihar floods, it tanked a little. South, it has been a little softer, I would say.
So, if I'm getting the sense correctly, Mr. Cooper, you saying that demand is not on the table. South has been soft and the other regions haven't really set the stage on fire. It's difficult to envisage a scenario wherein pricing could move up substantially over the course of the next 3 months, at least as things stand right now.
See what happens, basically this is the monsoon effect. Many places the monsoon was delayed. So we should not attribute that the total demand is vanished off the market. But yes, in some parts of the country where the demand is low is also because of availability of sand and building materials. So I think once this monsoon period, which is now about to end, and there was a Sharad period now after this period when the Navratra start, new construction starts in, triggers in, I think the demand should start coming back from October onwards. And I think by November it should be better off.
How is channel really coping up with GST implementation?
Yes, initially we saw a lot of setback in the business. For quite some time, for days together, we did not see the demand coming in because the dealers were a little worried about how they will manage their businesses. But I think the cement dealers in a very short period, they were able to understand now that there is no way out. So in the retail segment, we are still finding that at a retailer's level, that is the sub-dealer level, there is still resistance. But I think those people who are in business, they have no options. So one by one, they will keep coming in. We saw some improvements happening in the month of September. In August, there was a little lackluster there, but now coming forward, I think October and November should be better. I think people are getting used to it. It's a question of how they manage their accounts, how they manage. Many people who did not have registrations have got registered. They have hired chartered accountants to do the business. It is a little cumbersome, especially the debit notes, the credit notes for them is going to be a little tough because industry practices are very varied from right from north to south. If you go, the practices vary in a very, very major way. So the dealers will have to learn to cope up, and the companies probably will have to change their methods of working also, I suppose.
Mr. Cooper, the higher costs to cement counters as a result of less availability of sand and a few other factors, will that result in margins getting squeezed, coupled with the fact that pricing is not looking as robust? Or would you have saved quite a bit because of freight cost savings? Because across the board, when we read reports, we hear this piece of news that freight rates have come off quite rapidly and transport is a lot quicker post GST than what it used to be ahead of June.
I don't think that is the freight cost will get impacted because of GST. I would say that this is probably a myth. In my view, the transportation is taking the same amount of time which it used to take. Maybe about a few hours you can reduce here and there. It's because of the toll tax avoidance and all those things. But I don't think you are going to see a major reduction in freights going forward.
Wow, okay, that's a bit of a revelation, because reports, at least the sell-side reports, Mr. Cooper, that are coming in are saying that freight rates have come off, availability is much higher. You are negating that. You're saying that is not the case. For Heidelberg at least, or maybe for the industry at large, freight rates haven't come off.
No, it has not come off, and it won't come down also, because you see, when the demand is low, the truck availability will go up, because those trucks which are plying only for cement, that truck availability is there because the demand itself is depressed. Once the demand comes in, the same amount of trucks will get pressed into service. So I don't think it's a very short-term way of looking at it. In the long run, you are having the same amount of trucks, same amount of road transportation to take place. You have the same railway yards, 50% close to is moving by rail, 50% by road. I think this will stabilize again, come back to its normal curve in the month of October, November.
Okay. So other than infra, housing is the other key driver for your sector, really. Mr. Cooper, what kind of indications have you got so far from the big buyers, big developers? Are they ready for resuming construction activity post monsoon? What kind of orders or off-take do you really expect?
See, if you look at it, the housing availability in terms of surplus still exists in the market, especially the metros, the surplus is there. So metros will continue to see pressure, but in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, I think there is a significant amount of demand which will come from a smaller housing. In terms of the Pradhan Mantri, Yojana of this Awas Vikas and things which are moving in, I think we see a lot of activity taking place there at state level. So those states which are moving faster on this, they will see a better demand for cement from especially the government sector also in terms of housing, the small low cost housing. But if I look at the tier 1 cities, they will continue to remain under pressure, because I think the availability of unsold stock is significant there.
Your PMAY, have you really seen implementation so far, or it's all at the drawing board?
It is now, at least there are phone calls coming from contractors, phone call coming from the collectors, asking for cement, asking us to quote a better rate for long-term contracts. So these things from the local ministers are coming, phones are coming in that, they want to tie up for cement. So there is some activity which was not seen about 9 months back. At least we could see something in the month of July, August. People started talking to us. So I think it's now time is coming up for some demand to come in.
Do you expect real orders flowing in?
I think the real orders will start somewhere around December, end December to onwards. I think January, let us say a little conservative, it should start from January onwards. I think it should be better.
Okay, my final question to you, Mr. Cooper. For Heidelberg individually, how do you expect FY18 as a year to shape up? Both, one on the kind of growth that you could see, price, volumes, revenue, and two, whether operationally it will be a stable year, or could we see some pressure there?
On the cost side, we have managed our costs. Heidelberg has managed its costs very well. So I think we are only just concerned about the market side, which is always a big dilemma. The all India market is growing around 5%. So I think we should be better than that, or at least we match that. At least we not be lower than the market rate, whatever trend it is. So to that extent, I can say that we will try to at least be better than the industry trend.
Okay, Mr. Cooper, we wish you all the best for that and more. Thanks for taking the time out and joining us today. So that's the cement discussion. Lots of reports about how pricing has come under pressure, how the cement offtake hasn't been that strong and demand-supply mismatch. I think a couple of things that got clarified out here, namely one, that freight rates haven't come off for cement at least, and by that I would probably extend to the other commodities as well. And they hope that margins will be managed very well in the current quarter.